Hello, welcome back to Suburban Hunt 365. I am DJ. We're back in the reload room again today. Today's episode, we're going to be continuing on with our muzzleloader series here on this channel. Last video that we did with the muzzleloader series, we tested loose powders using a standard plug and a Blackhorn 209 plug. For those of you that may have missed that, this is basically what we're talking about here. So this is a standard plug. As you can see, the pellets are meant to rest on this lip here. The 209 primer goes into the bottom pocket here, and then there's a nice flash channel that goes up to ignite the pellets. Now for the Blackhorn 209 or loose powder, there's a cup right here that allows the loose powder to go down inside this cup, and again you have the 209 hole right there, and it flashes up to about there and then ignites the powder inside here and then goes kaboom. So that's the thing. Now these are the same size. Like I said, these is for 50 cal muzzleloader, but you can see this is flat and this has the cup to it. So that's the difference between the standard and the Blackhorn 209 plugs. So if you guys haven't seen that video, by all means, there's the link above for when we tested the loose powders. Today's episode, we're going to be going to the pellets. And that's because a lot of you guys commented down below in the previous one, hey, I wonder what happens if you use pellets on the Blackhorn 209. And the biggest concern that I have, and rightfully so, and it's not me, it's that everybody has, is the fact that when you put a pellet on top of this, it's going to be sitting on top. So you have a big cup inside here, so you have an open space of air here, to where when you hit the primer, it ignites into this, which is now going to be an open chamber, and then finally igniting the pellets on top, hopefully. That's the idea. So the question is what does happen when you put pellets on top of a loose powder? Now, there is a chance that if you put this down there and you press real hard on that ramrod, that you're going to crush those pellets, and it may go down in there and could do some things. The testing that I'm doing today, you're going to get it seated, but we're not crushing. We want to make sure not to crush that because I really want to see what happens when we run those. Now, just like in the previous video, we are running Power Belt 2 95 grain coppers. Why? Because I've got a bunch of them. I'm not really testing this here today. So while I will be giving you the group sizes, we're not really worried about the group sizes. What I want to see is how are my velocities affected. We do have the groups just to kind of compare also, but how's our velocities doing, and what other changes or what other differences can we see during this test? So we are looking at, those of you that have been around for a while, you guys know we're pretty much going to run the same thing we do on all our pellet tests. We are going to start off with the 777 50 grain pellets. We're going to be using 2 of them. We're going to be using 100 grain charge all the way across this test. Why? Because we have to start somewhere, and my shoulder doesn't necessarily need all these shots in 150 grains, right? So 100 grains of 777 50 grain pellets, so 2 of them. Then we're going to move into the Pyrodex. Pyrodex, also 50 grain pellets. We'll be using 2 of them for 100 grain charge. Next up is the White Hots. Again, 50 grain pellets, we'll be using 2. Now, this is where it gets tricky. The 777 Fire Stars, they are 33 grain pellets. And as you can see on the side here, if I can zoom in. Come on, there we go. 3 pellets equals 100 grain equivalent. So, as the package says, we will be using 3 pellets with the Fire Stars here. And then, of course, we're going to be using 2 of the 777 Magnums. Now, that is a 60 grain pellet, but it's what we're going to be using because that's what we shot all these 777s with, is the 2 pellets. So what we're going to be using is my CVA Optima V2 with the Conus 3-9x40 on top of it. And we will be using the same primers as before. We'll be using the Chadites. I know those of you that may have been around, I've been using the Fado 209s. Well, that's more for accuracy test. So just like in the last video, we're not changing the primers. We're not changing the pellets. What we're changing is the plug. So we are going to be shooting at a 100-yard target. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and start off with the 777 100 grain charge with the standard plug first, and let's get us a baseline. All right, not a terrible way to start this. That group is a 3.5 inches. So again, we're not so much worried about the group, even though it's not a terrible one. What are our velocities? Looking here, we have a 1506, a 1463, and a 1438, giving us an average of 1469. Okay, 1469. That's our baseline with a standard plug. Let's go ahead and let's see what happens when we swap out those plugs for a Blackhorn 209 plug. All right, that definitely shot a little bit lower there on the first one. That first one's kind of hard to see. It's down there in that bottom right-hand corner. But we went from a 3.5 up to a 6.5 inch group. All right, let's check out those velocities. Looking at the velocities, we have 1466, 1480, 1441 for an average of 1462. So a lot closer than I thought. 7 feet per second. It's just a little bit slower, but it's a lot better than I thought. I honestly thought we were going to get a lot lower than that. But we did increase our group size by quite a bit. Now, the one thing that I did notice, and it could just be on the 777s at this point, but the cleaning was nowhere near as easy. Now, when you have the 777 standard plug, you got to let it soak. You got to run your patches through. There's about 3 patches or so to get that good and clean. And then I use a nylon brush to get the curd ring out of there. It took closer to 7 or 8 patches to clean out when I used the Blackhorn 209 plug. I assume because, as we mentioned before, we've got a gap, we've got an air channel in there, and it's sparking inside there. So I assume that it's not as hot, it's not igniting as hot as it would be if it was right on top of it like it is with the regular standard plug. But again, that's 777. 777 is kind of dirty. So a little bit slower, a lot bigger group. All right, let's see what happens when we change it out. Let's put Pyrodex on there. Again, 100 grains. Standard plug. Okay, Pyrodex standard plug coming in with a 4 3/4 of an inch. All right, let's look at those velocities. We've got 1607, 1433, 1640 with an average of 1560. That middle one, that's kind of an oddball there. We've got a 1607 and a 1640, but we got a 1433 right in the middle of this thing. Came out with a 4 3/4 inch group. Guys, the average is 1560. So that's interesting. It's a little bit faster than what we saw with the 777s, but let's find out what happens when we swap out the plugs. Blackhorn 209 plug. Oh, I was not expecting that. We have a 2-inch group with the Blackhorn 209 plug and pellets. That's interesting. So, looking at the velocities, we have a 1377, a 1492, and a 1503. So we've slowed down quite a bit going over to the 209 plug here. Yeah, that average being 1457. So, yeah, almost 100 feet per second there on that drop. But we went to a 2-inch group. And almost, right there, all dancing around that bullseye. That's very interesting that happened. All right, guys, let's go ahead and let's move over to the white hots again. We're going to be using 100 grains. Let's start off with the standard plug. All right, guys, 3 1/8 of an inch group is what we got out of the white hots with the standard plug. Looking at these velocities, we've got 1518, 1476, 1415 for an average of 1470. So we're kind of on par with the velocities that we've seen so far. Let's go ahead and let's swap out that plug. Blackhorn 209 with white hots. All right, white hot, keeping it kind of similar there with the 3 7/8 inch group there. Our velocities are at 1499, 1538, 1432 for an average of 1490. So we've actually gone up 20 feet per second. That's interesting. Groups are kind of staying the same. We got a 3 1/8 and a 3 7/8 with the Blackhorn 209 plug. So kind of interesting there. We flopped it up. We got a little bit faster and we got still a little bit bigger group. Huh. All right, well, let's see what other data we can get. Let's go ahead, let's move into the Fire Stars. Again, we're using 3 pellets for 100 grain equivalent. Standard plug. All right, Firestar looking like it wants to go for a hunt. We got a 3 1/2 inch group there. Now, our velocities, we're looking at 1683, 1695, 1616 for an average of 1665. And again, that's a 3 1/2 inch group. So, okay, so overall we got a little bit faster. Now, we were using 3 pellets, but it's fire stars, it says, for the 100 grain equivalent there. But we're moving a little bit faster with the fire stars. So I'm interested to see what happens when we swap out the plug. Blackhorn 209 plug, fire stars, 100 grains. All right, fire stars yet again. They got a decent group right there. That is a 2 5/8 of an inch group. So that's so far that's the second best group of the day. But again, we're looking more at the velocity. So let's move into it. We have a 1602, a 1597, a 1633, giving us an average of 1611. So yet again, we've slowed down, but we've got a better group. That's interesting. That is kind of hitting all over the place here. So, all right, let's go ahead and let's move into the 777 Magnums, and then we'll go and we'll look at this chart here and really dig into what we got in the data. So, 777, 2 pellets for 120 grain load, standard plug. All right, well, despite that last one hitting the bullseye right there, that group comes in at a 5.5 inch group. So not awesome. But again, we're not worried about the group so much as we are with the velocities. So let's look here. We have a 1681, 1662, 1655 for an average of 1666. So we're on par with what we saw with the fire stars. Let's go ahead and let's swap out those plugs. Well, crap. It's a good thing we didn't need those groups today. We really did kind of look at them a little bit, but that one hit below the target. Now, just so you guys know, I was using the exact same point of aim when I was running the standard plug as I did with the Blackhorn 209 plug. So I don't really see any reason for it to hit in the middle. I mean, we had a lower one, upper one, and a bullseye on the regular plug, and now we're shooting almost 6 inches low on the last one because the second one hit the paper there at the very bottom, and I have to assume that the other two just went underneath the target. So that's not awesome for the 777s with the Blackhorn 209. But we do have the velocities. So let's see what we got here. We have 1666, which is ironic because that matches our average for the last one. And then we got 1736 and 1656. So our average is 1686. All right, guys, so looking at this chart here, we're looking at the average ones. We're not going to go through all the shots, but the average, so 777s, we're at 1469 with the standard plug, 1462 with the Blackhorn 209 plug. So we got a 7 feet per second slower change there, which I kind of expected it to be a little bit bigger of a gap between the standard plug and the Blackhorn 209 plug. Then we're looking at the Pyrodex here. We got a 1560 and a 1457. That's more of the discrepancy that I was expecting to see. 100, close to 100 feet per second difference. What I didn't expect was it to be cut in half as far as the group size go. That's rather interesting. So we went from having almost the same feet per second to having double the group with the Blackhorn 209 plug to having quite a bit slower with the Blackhorn 209, but giving us a 2-inch group. So that almost exactly contradictory to each other. That's kind of interesting. So you had the white hots giving us a 1470 and a 1490. So now we got a faster group with the Blackhorn 209 and almost the exact same group with a 3 1/8 with a standard and a 3 7/8 with the Blackhorn 209. So that's interesting. Moving on to the fire stars, we're looking at 1665 to a 1611. So we've got, what, 54 difference there. So not quite 100, but not quite nothing. So we're looking at the group size here. We go from a 3.5 to a 2 5/8 of an inch group. So there again, we're moving a little bit slower, and the group got a little better. That's kind of interesting. So then we go to the 777 Magnums with the 1666 and a 1686. So we go again moving 20 feet per second faster. Unfortunately, the group didn't hit the paper, so we really couldn't see what happened with that. But we do know that it shot, the group had to be at least 6 inches lower than the other group, if not more. So what do we get out of this data? Guys, and it's honestly inconclusive. We have faster feet per second with 209 with better, and we have faster with worse groups. Then we have slower with better groups and slower with worse groups. So it's kind of all over the spectrum here. We really can't say anything definitive that it did the same thing all the way through, except when it comes to cleaning that rifle. I kind of touched on it a little bit when we looked at the 777s, but I can tell you that every single one of these pellets, when I shot the standard plug, I could clean it. Run 2 patches through it, take my nylon brush, clean the crud ring out, and then run 2 more patches through it, and it'd be good to go for the next round. With the 209 plug, I would do my normal 2, clean out with the nylon brush, try to get the crud ring out, and then it took 3 or 4 patches, and sometimes going back with the nylon brush to get that crud out of there, to get just the funk. Now I assume it's because the spark is so far away from the pellets and it's not got quite the ignition power as it would with the smaller hole coming with the standard plug. But again, the velocities were faster on some, slower on others. The only thing that stayed consistent is how much of a pain it was to clean the barrel out when using the Blackhorn 209 plug. So DJ, if you had to use the Blackhorn 209 plug with pellets, could you? Can you? Yes. Will I? No. I've got plenty of extra plugs. I'll make sure to take them on when I go hunting with me, and I suggest you do the same, because if you lose, crack, or mess up that regular plug, you're going to want to have a replacement. But at the end of the day, if you practice with it at the range, that's what you do. So if all you have is a 209 plug and you have pellets and you work it up and it's shooting good for you, don't change a thing. Just deal with the cleaning at the end is basically what I can tell you there. So I know it's not exactly what we were hoping for. I was hoping for a definitive, do not do this, do this, do this. But we didn't get it, guys. The only thing I can tell you is it was a bear to clean after using the Blackhorn 209 plug. All right, guys, if you guys have made it this far, I cannot say thank you enough for being a part of what we do here on this channel. Guys, it has been a pleasure. I know it's been a little bit since I put out a video. I apologize. It's winter time. We're getting into spring. It's raining right now. We're in April, so April showers bring May flowers, right, guys? So we're right around the corner for really good weather, and I'll be hitting up that range quite a bit more. So thank you for your patience with this, but thank you for watching this video. Do me a favor, hit that like button at the bottom of the screen. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't. Become a part of what we're doing here on this channel. We greatly, greatly appreciated. And as always, as I always say, throw those comments down below. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, what you want to see, what you think about what you just saw. Guys, from Suburban Hunt 365, I'm DJ. We'll catch you guys on the next one.